Yo, what up, YouTube? In this motherfucking bitch. Chest expert coming at you with another video on a dark Thursday evening. Check it out. Playing a game in, bullet tournament. Fucking crazy. Banco Gambit tournament. You can see the Gamble Gambit on the motherfucking screen. Gonna be reviewing this game. I'm playing white. Playing white against highly rated player. Gonna check it out. So, to spice up the fucking video, once again, gonna have a little rant. Gonna be talking about organizational structure and how organizations work in the working market of a Western nation in Scandinavia and probably in most of the Western world and around the globe. Check it out. So, Banco Gambit. Have a look at this shit. So I play e3 and he closes the position. Really weird move, nobody ever played that in the fucking world, but that's what's happening. Holy shit, only 3 people ever played e3 in that position. That's pretty crazy. It must be a real bad move. Right, so organizational structure, let's do this. First of all, what's an organization? Let's talk about that. What do you think an organization is? What does it consist of? What does it do? Have you ever asked yourself the question? It's an important question. Castles there for me. Well, I think first of all, defining, back to the position. Defining an organization, I think first and foremost, an organization is a group of people cooperating in achieving a common goal. Whether that goal is producing something or having a service, depends on the organization, of course. So if we establish an organization as a group of people coordinating on achieving the same thing, we must ask ourselves, well, what does an organization want to achieve? That clearly depends on the organization in question. Let's say it is a public organization. Those are quite common, especially in Europe and in Scandinavia. Not saying I'm from Scandinavia, no, I'm from Romania. Anyways, no question about it. Look at a mate. That's a terrible move. Bam, 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 bam. It's a fucking mate. Let's check out this motherfucking game once again. I don't remember what I was saying. I lost my thread. Let's fucking view the game. So, let's suppose we're starting up an organization. Let's say we are entrepreneurs, we want, no wait, I remember what I was talking about. It's an important point. Let's say we're a public organization. What do we want off? Well, first and foremost, let's say we're public hospital. Well, no, what the fuck? Let's not talk about that shit, man. Let's talk about structure. Alright, okay. So how is an organization structured? That's an important point. Well, in the organizational literature, an important name, an important gentleman is Mr. Motherfucking Henry Mintzberg. You know it, don't say the fucking name. He's like Voldemort and his motherfucking, you know what's up. Anyways, Henry or Harvey or Harry Mintzberg, I don't know what the fuck that guy's name is. Well, he outlined how organizations are structured simply. Well, if we view organizations as a sort of a time glass kind of structure with two, just that it's okay, let's just fucking hell, it's gonna be difficult for me to actually tell you how it's gonna look like. So I'm gonna pop that shit up on the screen. You're gonna see that shit. I'm gonna try to do it anyways. If it doesn't work, I'm gonna try to explain it anyway. I'm not too good on the video editing. Anyways, let's say you got an organization. Huh? Well, first of all, it's shaped like a time glass, and but I'm so sorry. And on the top, let's look at it. We get one again. Let's go. Oh shit. Anyway, oh, you got a time glass, which is a bit thick, but it's really thick on the bottom. All right, depends on the organization. But let's say it's thick on the bottom, and you got yourself two bulbs on both sides of the fucking time glass. Right? Just look at it, and don't look at it like a real time glass. Just on a paper, like the shape of it, like black lines on white paper or whatever. I don't give a shit. You got yourself on top, you got the strategic apex, bitch, and the strategic apex is where the motherfucking leaders are sitting up there and they doing their shit. You know what's good? They doing that shit on the strategic apex. That's where the leaders are. That might be like what do you call it? I don't even know what you call it in fucking English. I'm Romanian, you know, I don't give a shit. It might be a council, it might be whatever. It depends on what kind of organization you are. So you got strategic apex there in a big motherfucking up on the top. In the middle, you got what's called middle line, which is the middlemen, you know, the bosses in the middle, simply. And these guys, well, they do whatever, you know, who cares? They're the middle line. They're kind of the, you know, the link between the workers on what is called on the bottom of the time glass. It's fucking operating corp. It's just where the workers are. That's where Gustavo Gulliver is motherfucking place. They know what's good, and they're there. You know, they know what's good. They're there. That's where the Gustavo Gulliver is, and they are there. You know, there's no fucking doubt about it. And on the sides, on the left side, and this is all Henry Mintz or what the fuck Mintzberg's theory. You know, that's his structure. Who cares? And he has outlined it like this. You know, most organizations work like this, has a structure that can be applied to this figure. Left side, we got technical staff, or what is it? Yeah, technical staff. They work with infrastructure. They work with improving the product, what they are offering, the organization is offering simply, and they do whatever, you know, they do whatever. It doesn't, you know, they are important for organizations because they well, what do you say? I mean, they improve the product, didn't it? And on the right side of the fucking bulb, on the right bulb, you got yourself support staff. Now, support staff is like people who take the phones, people who motherfucking janitors, motherfucking canteen people, gives a shit. You need those in an organization as well. People gotta eat in a motherfucking organization. Now, we gotta remember that the importance of these different people, these different sides of an organization depends on the organization itself. So, as I was saying, if we take an example, if it's a fucking public hospital, a public hospital would, in theory, be called a professional bureaucracy. Now, what that means is for the structure of the organization. Let's look at this motherfucking game once again. It's a good game. What it means is that for the structural purposes, means that the doctors, the people who you probably would call, or who is in the operating core, will be taking much of the work in the technical support, because they are the ones that are doing the shit. They are the ones that are usually scientists as well as doctors. They do both things. So they will be improving the services. Services is what I was supposed to say. And products and services. And they will be improving the services that they give, help people with. And that is through research and practice, because they are the ones that are doing the shit. They, in a profession, bureaucracy, they have everything to say, and they practically have most of the power in a fucking organization. As we can see examples where strategic Apex has tried to change the routines, the structure of hospitals, in public hospitals, where that has not been accepted by the workers, the people in a fucking bottom line, the good on the girl, you know what I'm saying? And so that means, because it's a profession bureaucracy where they are completely dependent on who is working, that means that it wasn't accepted. It didn't work. It wasn't accepted, and the doctors, the people, the surgeons, whatever, they refused to do it. And therefore it wasn't done. Simply, they had to go back, and that showed the power of the operating core in that situation. Let's look at our fucking game once again. I got a lot to say in this motherfucking video. Be prepared. And yeah. But for example, if we take a classic example from organizations, we can see that one classic sort of bureaucracy, especially in the West, especially after industrial capitalism, of course, we see what is called the machine bureaucracy, which is, for example, car factories in America in the 1900s, after the war. That's like the classical example that many organizational theorists uh, use. Let's look at another game. This is completely boring. Let's just look at this game. I don't know. This is a great game. Let's watch this game. Let's not see the arrows in it. So now in a machine bureaucracy, we can clearly the structure is very much hierarchical. That was a difficult word. Which means that it's practically governed completely by the strategic apex. Gutapagölve are simply Gutapagölve. They are the workers and they don't have as much power as strategic apex. Simply, which is, very often that is the case in organizations. I'm just gonna talk now because chess isn't interesting. Social theory is, motherfucker. Alright. Now, a machine bureaucracy is in many ways the prime example of industrial capitalism in the West after the war. Because we see standardized working patterns, we see very organized, very hierarchical structure. And the owner of the first proper machine bureaucracy, the first factory, the car factory, we're talking about car factories here, motherfucker, is Henry Ford. The legend, the American dream reborn, bitch. He's the one. Everyone loves him in America, even though he was a bastard. Henry Ford's mission, or Henry Ford's sort of goal, was to create products as cheap as possible, as fast as possible, simple and as quick. Yeah, I said that. Cheap as possible, fast as possible. And this has been replicated by thousands, hundreds of thousands of organizations in the same manner. An example, because of the post-industrial period in, for example, Scandinavia, in most of Europe, has come about because of standards in Japan being much more extreme, when car factories in Europe were out competited by car factories in Japan. It was because of the Japanese having a much more centered around this and being extremely interested and devoted to the task that Henry Ford set forth, creating cheap products fast as possible. Now, of course, I talked about this in the Karl Marx video, where this kind of structure creates usually alienation to some extent, but that is a discussion that I now want to take up, because an organization is different than a factory in many ways. There are very many different bureaucracies in the world. If we take, for example, what we would call an entrepreneur bureaucracy, which is quite common today, because in Western economy entrepreneurs are really looking after, because the economy has to renew itself. You know, you need innovation. You know, and I'll talk about that later, because this is gonna be a fucking long video. Because okay, anyways, in an entrepreneur bureaucracy, we got very different organizational structure than in a machine bureaucracy, where the strategic apex is extremely strong, and the organization consists of very few people who are very free in many ways, in as opposed to the machine bureaucracy, where the working the the fucking working procedures are very standardized and very set in stone, and where every worker knows what he is supposed to do at any time, and there's not a lot of variation in the work either. So that's what's going on there. In a entrepreneur bureaucracy, it's different, because as I said, it consists of very few people. The startups, they are working a lot in many different things, but they're working under a vision by the entrepreneur, the boss, which in many ways tells them what to do quite directly. There isn't a lot of if and but in a motherfucking, because you know what you're gonna do, you know. But you gotta do loads of different stuff, you know. Setting up an organization or company ain't no easy bitch, you know. You gotta do that shit, and it's difficult. It's simple as that. Now, as opposed to machine bureaucracy, an entrepreneur organization is much freer. But what is also interesting is that many organizations, even machine bureaucracies, do use what is called ad hocracy, which is setting up a small organization, a small group of people who are competent to solve a particular task. That is very normal, and not only in machine bureaucracies, but in government level as well, where you set up sort of a council who is commissioned by the state, the government, whoever, you know, who are set up to solve a task simply. Now, in an adhocracy, it's very loose. And I think, yes, I want to talk about something that Mintzberg described as social processes within an organization. Social and organizational processes, decisional processes within an organization. Now, in social processes, he draws up, look at a time glass, whatever the fuck, he draws a vertical line throughout the fucking shit, and depending on how big that vertical line is showing how sort of the communication within the organization works. So in an organization like a machine bureaucracy, the communication usually isn't quite strong between those on the operating goal and those in a motherfucking strategic apex. You know, that shit doesn't work, you know. The boss are the boss, the guys on the go are the motherfucking guys on the go. You know what it goes. But communication in an organization is extremely important, of course. And there are different ways to communicate in different organizational structures. For example, in an adhocracy or an entrepreneur bureaucracy, you'll have extremely strong and big vertical social processes because of the sheer number of people that is very small. Therefore, the communication goes very smoothly and loosely from the top to bottom, and usually there is no particular bottom in this case, but the communication is very important in different kinds of bureaucracies, like from bottom to top or vice versa. Usually the communication goes from top to bottom and not from bottom to top usually. Communication also usually goes to support staff, to technical support and strategic apex, and then downwards probably. Anyways, the communication is extremely important in an organization. It says itself, it's extremely important. And so that is that. Anyways, what I was about to talk about now? There's so much to talk about, and I'll fucking lose my mind. Let's check out this game. Okay, D4, D5. Who cares? This motherfucker. There's a lot of interesting things to talk about when it comes to organizational structure. And I think I'm gonna look at my motherfucking book because, there's interesting things to talk about it. Let me look at this. Holy shit. I think it's important, actually. I didn't read that in the book, but I want to talk about it because when you are an organization, you are usually, if you are, selling products or services, you have your face outwards, to the public. And what do you want the public to see? Well, first of all, you may have recognized and maybe not thought over so much the fact that most organizations have a slogan or a vision that they proclaim on their website or posters round and around. Who the fuck cares? I hate commercial, by the way. Anti-commercial bitch, but that's what they do now. Okay. Anyways, they'll have a vision. For example, like Vive, the road service in particular country might say that, we want to build better roads for the people in this motherfucking country, and we want to make there be less accidents on the roads and stuff, and that might be their vision. Now, a vision is often closely related, or is related to what is called goals. Now, there are depths to this, because you have first your main goals. Now, what is your main goal? You got your vision on top, alright, but a vision is a vision. Usually a vision is very long term, and under it, to achieve the vision, you'll have your main goals and your part goals, your deal, your sort of shorter time span goals. Now, in your main goals, you like to have sort of goals that are achievable within a time frame of a few years, probably. Might be many years, might be a few years, And then under the main goals, you have your DEL goals, your secondary goals, or closer goals in many ways, where you have time spans of less time, practically. Because to achieve a vision or the goals that you set for yourself and your organization, you need to address them by setting up closer goals, goals that are achievable within an acceptable time frame. Now, goals is actually quite difficult because it ain't no straight line to the motherfucking goal, as my grandma used to say. To achieve a vision which is loose and abstract in many ways. Abstract is actually quite an important word in this discussion. Visions are usually abstract, while main goals and shorter time span goals aren't. They are quite conceivable. But achieving a vision, of course, requires these, but it is difficult to achieve an abstract vision, an abstract goal, and therefore you need direction, And when you take a direction, usually it's easier to follow the path that you've already treaded, and you have to choose which direction to take as an organization, and that's not particularly easy, as it ain't no straight line to the motherfucking vision, and if you choose a vision, like the example with the roads, how do you achieve that? How do you do that? It's very difficult to understand and conceive of how to actually do it. So, you have your strategic apex together with your organization, technical support staff, everything. Discussion depends, of course, on the organization in question, but finding a way forward for the organization is extremely important. Choosing a way to go, but that's not easy. And that's the point. And an organization who's gone towards, gone in a particular direction, chooses certain things. It chooses something, and it chooses a way, another thing. And that is extremely important to remember when it comes to organizations, because you'll have your organizations who may be going down a path which has been, of course, God damn it again, the words are losing my mind in this speech, you might be going down a pathway, and you're choosing certain ways and choosing away others. It's difficult to change course then. Now, not only from a human perspective, seeing as accepting the faults that one has done, the wrong ways which one has treaded down paths, isn't always easy, particularly when the organization in question has been structured around, wholly based on the decisions that have been made, the goals that have been achieved, the path which has been that the organization has gone down. Simply difficult to change direction, and that is, of course, a source of much frustration for the general public, who might be very angry with many organizations because they are not doing what they should be doing, in light of crises that we're seeing today, climate change, the horrors of industrial capitalism, etc., etc. It's an important, but it's important to remember that. And it's important to remember that organizations are very human things. People organizing themselves and trying to find common goals to achieve. It's it's human nature. It's as simple as that. And it's difficult to change the course. It is very difficult. Now, there was something I wanted to talk about now. There was something interesting in that. Let's just light it up. Okay, let's just watch the game for a bit, Let's watch the game. Yeah. This is a good game, man. This is I hope you like. I hope you like Fries, bitch. It's a good game. And let's have a look at his game. Let's have a look at this game. Oh, I missed a great opportunity for a fork there, but he failed. And yes, that was good, man. I like. What a button. Yeah, you look like a model. I don't gotta check my book. Let me check. Check that shit out. What the fuck is this? What the fuck? Let's talk about environment and organization. It's very important to remember that an organization is based in the real world, in an environment, in a particular community, and that with the technological revolution in which we see a market, a world of companies that are integrated on a global level. So organizations who are chasing big goals, organizations who are trying to achieve big things become economically powerful, etc., helping many people, has to be facing and be relevant for very many people. A big company, which is also online, is visible for the whole world, for the people that are on the internet. A big company where services are available for people around the world is quite common in today's market. And when companies have to face so many different people and milieux and environments, this brings forth many challenges. And I want to talk about this as well in connection with what I said about vision. As I said, a organization is always facing outwards, practical. It's always available to the public. And so, an organization has to look good if you want to make it work. And there's a lot of things going into this. You have your organizational culture, you have all those discussions, you have symbolic things, you have abstract, or not abstract things in an organization which represents it. You have the way people talk in the organization, the way people talk about the organization, within the organization, outside of the organization. It's the face of the organization. It's also the inner structure of the organization in terms of who's working there. There's a lot of levels when it comes to this, and an organization, how it looks, is extremely important. An organization whose reputation is damaged usually doesn't make it that far. Of course, it depends on the sheer power of the organization, how big it is. As we see Hennessy Marriott, they are fucking assholes, and people are pinpointed the shit that they've done loads of places in the world. But still, they remain relevant in the market because they are competitors when it comes to low prices and stuff, and their services are cheap, and therefore people continue to use them, even though they have dabbled occasionally in child labor, which is not exactly a good thing. But I guess people don't care about that because they need a new fucking top or whatever. Who gives a shit? Anyways, shit. Yeah, when it comes to milieu and environment that organizations operate in, how do they achieve sort of good looks? Well, there's many ways to do that. One of them is vision, of course. The organization wants to do something good. Fine. The organization also has to do something good. Now, to show that, of course it's different according to which sort of plane you're on. If you're on a global scale, if you're on a local scale, if you're on a national scale, it depends on what it does. If it has good services, then that looks good. But to achieve good looks in a local level, well, one has to dabble in funding things, funding the local football team, whatever. All that shit makes it look better, So that's important. Also, on a global scale, there exists many, many, many different things that organizations can tie themselves to. For example, environmental goals, to look good on an international level, to look like a responsible organization. One ties oneself to sort of promises about reducing carbon emission, stopping using plastics, whatever. There's a lot of things that an organization can do to look good. And of course, the integrity of an organization is on the line here. Because many organizations, they don't actually do what they say they're gonna do. The organization's activities don't comply with their goals, their visions, and their promises. In some instances, it is very hard to regulate a company's activity, particularly because there's so many of them, and if they're very big, it's very hard. So a company, this is usually what is called symbolic legitimacy. And symbolic legitimacy, it's about what I just said. You know, an organization says it's gonna do one thing, but it doesn't do it. Does something else. Now, of course, this causes problems outwards, but it also creates a bad working environment for the people within the organization. It is very important for an organization to look good for people, because they need people to work for them, obviously. But if an organization says that it wants to do something, one thing, but it does nothing or something completely different or something else, or it doesn't do the optimal thing, if it doesn't do the right thing, or if the thing doesn't comply with their vision and their goals, well, it loses legitimacy. Now, this is, of course, very serious for the organization on an international, like face outwards level. If people find out about it, about the organization, then it's bad. You know, that doesn't work. That isn't good for the organization outwards. If it stays within the organization, it depends on the workers who work within it. Because if the workers are sort of a bit cynical and they make the money they need and they just go home, it doesn't really matter. But for responsible people, it kind of matters that the organization you work for does what it says it's gonna do. And that brings forth a very interesting theme, which is called organizational milieu or climate, which is about the workplace and how to create a good environment in the workspace. Now, there are many different ways in which an organization will recruit people. No, that's about learning. Forget what I just said. Me. Shit, you know what? I think I'm actually gonna go to bed now, but I thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned a thing about organizations. I hope you did. If you didn't, you're a fucking asshole. Chess expert coming at you with another fucking chess video on this motherfucking chess channel. See you next time, bitch.